Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you're all well. You're amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's still Sunday, and you're still looking absolutely amazing. This is just going to be a very quick video, because I've been talking to my man Eddie. Now, Eddie is a very clever person. Now, I can't tell you who Eddie is, but trust me when I say Eddie's a very clever person. He'll be watching this and he'll know I'm talking about him. First of all, we just have to address very quickly the new version of Bryan Kohberger's an absolute psychopathic murdering motherfucking psycho, brought to you by Blumber. So apparently, as some people have pointed out to me, in the interview that he did on Andrew D. Myers, it would transpire that Bryan Kohberger is not only guilty of this quadruple homicide as what he's trying to push, which he's apparently changed his mind, but he has been given some insider info. I have you know, that there is an investigation going on over some stolen identification or card to get into a laboratory, a lab, a room, and potentially some equipment, chemicals have gone missing to make a bomb. That's right, Bryan Kohberger was potentially building a bomb. Anyway, I think we can file that under load of fucking shit. Who knows, it might come out at trial, they might try and push something, who knows. But what are we talking about in this video on top of utter garbage? We're talking about how law enforcement have potentially tried to do some trickery. Kansas City shuffle. You know, that sleight of hand. Now, if you look at the behaviour of the white Hyundai Elantra, what's the first thing that springs to mind for all of you sane people out there? That car looks like a car that isn't sharking. It's not, skulking its prey. It's fucking lost. That's my opinion. This is a car that is looking for a property. Now, some people may say, look, maybe Bryan Kohberger did literally pull this house out of the air. No connection whatsoever. Literally I'll drive over to the nearest place, nearest town to me, go over there and do this crime. Now, that is possible. I'm not going to remove that completely off the table. But we know there was a DoorDash delivery. And what don't we know about the DoorDash delivery? We don't know anything. We don't know anything about this DoorDash delivery. We don't know whether they had a car that was potentially a Sonata, for instance, or it was another light-coloured Hyundai Elantra, or a car that could have been mistaken for a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. Because let's put it this way. If you believe Bryan Kohberger is the person who did this crime, then you have to concede that the FBI specialist got the car wrong. He got the car wrong in the first place because he would say that this car was a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra, and that's not what Bryan Kohberger drives. Now, some people will challenge the aesthetic differences in these cars, but there are subtle aesthetic differences to these cars. And if this agent with 30 years experience didn't know, then he could have simply said a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra, but he put it into this specific bracket, I would imagine for a specific reason, who knows. But yeah, so, look. We know Xana Kernodle, for instance, was on her phone. They have stated in the PCA that she was on her phone, likely on TikTok or whatever. But we have a DoorDash situation that seemingly had some confusion in finding the property. Now, was that because there seems to still be some confusion with whether it's 1122 King Road or whether it's Queen Road? King Road, Queen Road, a delivery, a car that seems to be circling around, driving up and then going back and reverse and doing turns in the road. That's not a car, or how can I say it? That's not the behaviour of a car that knows where it's going. That's a car that's lost. In my opinion, of course, and I'm not a professional, I'm not law enforcement, I'm not a specialist in cars, I'm not a specialist in manoeuvring cars. Well, I am. I can manoeuvre them, and I know how I behave when I go somewhere and I am lost. And this movement of this car is reminiscent of such. So did law enforcement, in fact, they knew Bryan Kohberger was in an area where he could be put in an area through phone pings because the area is so vast. We touched on this in the last video, remember? So you have a DoorDash delivery. We have a delivery to this house that gives you car on a camera that's behaving oddly. But do we know it's not the DoorDash driver? Well, who knows? They seemingly cleared the DoorDash driver, but we have a car. We have the behaviour of this car. So if you then find somebody who's got no alibi that's going to satisfy the rules of being an alibi in Idaho, and you've got somebody who said, look, I was driving around the area, I drive a white Hyundai Elantra, and you can kind of do some magicery pokery stuff and kind of, we'll slot his car into this movement. How could they have done it? Could they have utilised some footage from the DoorDash driver and the driving around of said DoorDash driver? Because ultimately, right, what footage have we seen? Because in theory, if there was Bryan Kohberger, for instance, and DoorDash delivery driver, then we should, in theory, see both of them cars on camera. There should be footage of both of them cars. Now, will it come out in the court? Possibly. But they would have possibly been driving in tandem. If Bryan's lying about being somewhere else, and he literally left his apartment in Pullman, Washington, when they said, and headed to Washington, Idaho, and it just so happens that 1122 King Road happens to order some food that originates from, the same place, they would have driven in tandem and arrived at the same property at the same time. Isn't that an odd one? And so far, when challenged about where the car, what footage there was, this, that, and the other, we so far have not been given any evidence that this car is in fact Bryan Kohberger's. We've got an FBI agent that seemingly has said that it's not Bryan Kohberger's. And we have statements in the PCA that would allude to the fact that Xana Knodel could have potentially been contacted by the DoorDash driver to say, hey, look, where are you? Where are you? So, did they? Let me know down below. What do you think? Did law enforcement amalgamate the movements of Bryan Kohberger, perhaps in some other place, and the DoorDash driver, not knowing where the fuck they were, and kind of mesh them together to make it fit? Who knows? But what we do know is, Ann Taylor and Eliza Massath, they're saying Bryan Kohberger is innocent. Is that how they know he's innocent? Because they know that they don't have footage of Bryan Kohberger's car in Moscow, Idaho at all. In fact, they potentially know that the car in that footage is the DoorDash driver. I'll catch you all in the next one.